Would guidance from an expert help you to grow your business or career? Or do you seek inspiration for you or your kids? If so, welcome. Behind the Words TV gives you that one-on-one time with famous and emerging authors or content creators. They'll take you where you want to go. Behind the Words TV, right now. Have you or anyone in your life been touched by cancer? If so, you're going to want to sit tight for this episode of Behind the Words TV. Hi, I'm Paul Madsen, host of the program and founder of GrowMedia.com and author of Men Grieve Too. I'm very excited because today's guest, Mary Robinson, is the author of a new book called Seed, Stem, and Bloom. Mary, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me, Paul.
Well, thanks for being here. We have a lot to talk about. Mary, who is this book for?
This book is for anybody that has been touched by cancer and their caregivers, and it puts a positive spin on things.
Well, that's a wonderful breath of fresh air because cancer is a horror, is it not?
It is.
And
when
you
you
would
hear
know.
that word,
Yes.
cancer,
Yeah.
it sends chills down your spine.
Well,
because-
and you would know because not only once but twice you've been involved, right?
Yes.
That's quite a story, and you're still here.
I am,
Yes.
and I'm doing very well.
Well, that's wonderful. Tell us. You say you're looking to add a positive spin. What's behind that? What does that mean?
I feel like you need to search for the joy in any circumstance that you have, because a positive mindset makes a world of difference. And yes, you can have gloomy days and you can have tears.
Oh, I'm sure.
But it's important to try to keep that optimistic view.
Well, and I mean, attitude has to be everything in that because, I've known people who've had cancer and who have given up. Mm-hmm. And but yours is the opposite side of that.
Yes, because I had a reason to live. I wanted to raise my children, and so that gave me great motivation.
Well, Mary, there are literally hundreds of books about cancer out there and beating cancer and surviving cancer or the aftermath of cancer. How is yours different? How is yours compelling to someone who has been touched by cancer?
Well, I feel like my book is different because I have written throughout my journey, and so it was in real time.
Oh.
And so I didn't have to remember how I felt at the moment. I had lots of perspective shifts, and I have lots of tools and strategies within my book to help other people going through cancer that they can try and survive.
Well, not only once, but twice, and so you have a big perspective. The book, Seed, Stem, and Bloom, Mary Robinson. It's about her lessons from my faith-led journey through cancer. And I love the cancer and the big emphasis on can.
Yes.
Mary, great to see you.
Great to
Thanks
see you
for
too,
coming.
Paul. Thank you so much.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Behind the Words TV. Have you ever been involved with cancer, the horrors of cancer, had a family member who was involved in some way with cancer? If so, you're going to want to sit tight for this episode, this chapter of Behind the Words TV, because we have a very compelling story for you. Hi, I'm Paul Madsen, host of the program, founder of GrowMedia.com, and author of Men Grieve Too. With me today is Mary Robinson. Mary, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me today, Paul.
Oh, so great to have you and come to tell your story. Tell me, Mary, what is your book?
Well, my book is called Seed, Stem, Bloom, Lessons from My Faith-Led Journey Through Cancer. And I wanted to share this book because I had lots of people tell me throughout my journaling that I should write a book about it because I learned so many things through my cancer experience, and it was compelling to them.
Well,
so I figured I can help people.
Well, I'm sure you can. Ultimately, who is the book for?
It is for cancer patients, their caregivers, anybody touched by cancer, but it's also for anybody. I feel like this book can help anybody through challenging situations in their life.
Well, if you look at it, it's yes, of course, it's about cancer and your journey and your victories, but ultimately, you're here. You're happy, you're smiling. It's an inspiration, isn't it?
Yes.
It's an inspirational story, so I like that. It's not just about cancer and people with cancer. Mm-hmm. So, Mary, how long did this whole process of creating this book take with you?
Well, it took a few years. My first battle with cancer, which, by the way, I had acute myeloid leukemia, and that was in 2014.
Okay.
And 2.5 years later, there was a relapse, and it was in 2017. And so I needed a stem cell transplant from a donor.
Wow.
Throughout that whole time, I journaled on Caring Bridge.
Wow.
And so that was a way for us to keep everybody informed about what was happening with my health. And I didn't only just journal about what happened that day, I had chemo treatments. I journaled about different thoughts and feelings and life perspectives and shifts in my perspective.
Well, I like what you said earlier, that this book is kind of created real time. It's not going back after you're all well and all good all of a sudden and say, oh, what do I remember? And because I know when you're going through trauma, parts of your brain can shut down.
Exactly, and how are we supposed to remember certain things?
Yeah.
And that's what's so great about the brain. We don't have to remember all those horrible things that we don't want to remember.
Well, and it really does work like that. And I've been through some things myself, and I think it's the way that the brain protects us, don't you?
I do.
Because I can think of plenty of bad things, but those kind of fade a little bit. And I'm so glad that you, in your book, have focused on the things that helped and will help other people.
Exactly, and I definitely expanded on what I had written on Caring Bridge because, like I said, it was a process, and people had said I should write a book, and I think COVID made it possible because we were all stuck at home. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to take the challenge and do it. And so it just got published in April of 2022.
Awesome. Fresh off the press.
Yes.
Well, Mary, I think part of your compelling story is that you found a reason to fight cancer. Tell us more about that.
Yes, I feel like when you're in a challenging situation or a horrible one, such as a diagnosis of cancer, you need to find that reason to fight. Because if you don't, you might give up that hope. You might not try as hard. And I knew that my children and my family and my husband meant so much to me that I wanted to see my children graduate from high school. I wanted to be there to help them become respectable, trustworthy human beings. And I just didn't want to miss out on anything. I wanted to be a grandmother.
Yes.
And I thought, if I can just make it through 1 minute of one day, and keep expanding that to 5 minutes. And I knew God was with me fighting just as hard as I was. And when I didn't have the strength to do it on my own, He was in there swinging.
Well, I love the subtitle, My Faith-Led Journey Through Cancer. That was a pretty important key. The God part of it, the family part of it. Tell us briefly about your family.
Oh, I have my husband, of course, and he is a land surveyor. He owns his own business, American Surveyors. And then my son, Brody, is 21 years old, and he's doing an apprenticeship with him.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, my daughter, Holly, is 19, and she is in the pre-med program. She's going to be a doctor.
Wow.
And then my 16-year-old son is going to be a senior in high school, and then I have a 14-year-old daughter who is going to be a freshman in high school.
Sounds like a pretty busy household.
Yes, and I have to admit, before all of this, I'm a teacher of the visually impaired, and I was working full-time,
Wow.
and raising children. It was kind of a chaotic lifestyle.
I would think.
And cancer forced me to stop.
Yes, stop all
Yes,
motors, stop all things.
It did, and actually it was a blessing.
Yeah, well,
if I could say that.
Well, but in its own way, my aunt used to say a cloud with a silver lining or whatever. It's a cloud, but there's good and bad in every situation. And to me, Mary, you found a lot of 4 or 5 really good reasons to fight, to survive, to make this happen. And we'll talk about some of those specific tactics in another segment here. But for now, thanks so much for talking about your reason to live, Mary.
Yeah, thank you so much, Paul.
Hello and welcome back to this segment of Behind the Words TV. I'm Paul Madsen, host of the program, founder of GrowMedia.com, and author of Men Grieve Too. We're back with Mary Robinson. Welcome back, Mary.
Nice to be here, Paul. Thank you so much.
It's great to have you. Great to have you. We've been talking about cancer in your book, Seed, Stem, and Bloom. And it's your lessons from Lessons from My Faith-Led Journey Through Cancer. Wonderful book, wonderful journey, inspirational for all. Mary, in your book, you talk a lot about the journey with traditional medicine, Western medicine, as they say, and how your treatments and such went with that. But there's more to it than that, the story than that. Tell us some stories, a little bit about your experience with alternative medicine. A little bit more about that, please.
Yeah, and I didn't know anything about alternative medicine until after my first bout of cancer, just because I didn't grow up around it. So I was new to it.
Few of us have. I mean, it's named alternative for a reason.
Exactly. And I was at this, it's called A Time to Heal. It was a 12-week program at the time, and this was in 2015, and cancer survivors and their caregivers can go, and it was free. And I was like,
wow.
You know what, I'm just going to go. Maybe it'll help me move forward in life and in a new way.
I'd not heard of that kind of a program before.
Oh yeah, wow. It's really wonderful, and I think it's called Survivorship 101 at this time, and I think it's 6 or 8 weeks long, so it's a little bit different, but still the same program.
Sure.
And they had presenters there, and one of those times a presenter came that was a Reiki master teacher.
Okay.
And I was like, Reiki? I've never heard of such a thing.
You better spell Reiki because it's an unusual word.
It is. It's Reiki.
Okay.
Reiki.
And what is Reiki?
And it's a Japanese form of healing energy.
Okay.
And healing energy comes from source. Some people call it God, universal energy, and we all can tap into it. We all have that capability. And so when this particular presenter was talking to us, she was giving us calming techniques.
Okay.
And I was just fascinated. And we had a book that went along with this program that I was in. Okay. And I just said, hey, can you write your phone number on here? Yeah. And she opened it up, wrote her phone number. I didn't know if I'd ever call her again. And the next thing I know, I'm in need of help.
Well, were you were cancerous at the time?
No, at the time I was cancer free.
This
was after my cancer treatments. So it was a program for like survivorship of like what to do next.
Oh, okay.
Once all those doctor appointments come to an end, or not as often, sometimes people feel a little bit lost because you're with all of these people for so long, and then you're on your own, and it's like, now what?
Yeah.
And so I did this program. And anyway, I ended up at one of my doctor's appointments, which was getting further and further apart.
Right.
My platelets were getting lower.
Okay.
And I was like, what is going on? Because it was every 2 weeks they were getting lower, and I was getting nervous. So I opened that book up and I called that number of this lady that does Reiki. And I thought, well, gosh, is there any way you can help me? And so one of my friends had told me that your spleens hoard platelets.
Okay.
Now, I did not know that, and he's a nurse. Okay. So I was like, well, gosh, if your spleens hold platelets, I've got 2 spleens, which is really funny. That's a whole other story.
That's another show.
we found that out when I was in the hospital when they did an ultrasound. I was like, all right, I've got 2 spleens. I got lots of platelets. Well, I just needed to figure out how to get those out, right?
Release them, yeah.
Yeah, so this Reiki master teacher, she was like, you know what? You just need to use visualization. Well, why hadn't I thought of this? I mean, we all can think of different tactics to use to help. And so I started visualizing my spleens throwing out platelets into my bloodstream, and I imagined it being hot little cowboys, and they had this lasso, and they were streaming them out, and I thought, you know what, this is going to work, because I was visualizing it, and your mind can do so many wondrous things.
Well,
and
your mind, I've been told your mind does not know the difference between real and imagined.
That's
and so
correct.
You had a bunch of cowboys and horses with lassos.
I did.
On those.
And they were doing their job because my platelets started to rise with each doctor visit.
And you attribute this to Reiki?
Yes, I did.
Interesting.
And then I became a Reiki teacher master throughout the years.
Wow.
And also a healing touch practitioner.
Okay.
And which is the same concept. I mean, they both work hand in hand, and a certified herbalist.
Wow. Okay.
And an ordained minister, if we're going to go on.
Well, that's a lot of credentials.
I know.
I'm very impressed. Very impressed. Well, as we wrap up, Mary, advise those who may currently be in the throes of cancer or after cancer or worried about cancer, what ideas they should be open to with alternative medicine.
Yeah, well, they should definitely talk to their healthcare provider before trying anything, because ultimately, if they're on medications or whatnot, especially with herbal medicine, you need to talk to your healthcare provider to see if it's okay with them. But as far as energy work and connecting with anybody like that, it really complements your chemo treatments.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just a way to heal faster and help promote relaxation and release anxiety and the things that no longer serve your body. There's just a lot of benefits with it, and I mean, I'm more than happy to speak to anybody about that too if they're interested.
Well, we'll put your contact information on the screen, and it sounds like people should in fact be open to all things when they go through these the horror of cancer.
I believe so. I mean, I think when you're just trying to survive, you reach onto anything. And I figured if I was at this program that a presenter came, it's got to be valid.
Yeah.
And so, because like I said, I didn't know anything about it.
Well,
and it really did help me through things.
It worked for you, and I appreciate, it's a big world out there, and if we put our thinking into a narrow box and one size fits all, I think we're going to be missing out on something, don't you?
I do. I do.
Mary Robinson, Seed, Stem, and Bloom. Wonderful book, inspirational and helpful and mind expanding as well.
Yeah.
Mary, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Paul.
You bet. And welcome back to this segment of Behind the Words TV. I'm Paul Madsen, host of the program, founder of growmedia.com and author of Men Grieve Too. We are still here with Mary Robinson. Welcome back, Mary.
Welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Great to see you again. And we are, in this segment, we're talking about the idea of finding the joy in life. You have a two-time bout with cancer, and tell us, I guess, how bad it got for you. I mean, people say, "Oh, look at her; she's beautiful and everything's chipper and life is great." But you know, I mean, it wasn't always that way, was it?
No. In fact, and I'm very matter of fact in my book, very candid about what happened. People sometimes laugh a little bit at like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you wrote that," but you know, it's real. I wanted to keep it real.
And you wrote it in real time also. I mean, as you went through this process, form of a journal, is that what I understand?
Yes, and then I expanded on that.
Yeah, beautiful.
Exactly, and you know, I guess the first real experience, my first bout of cancer, I remember having this pain in my chest, and you know, the chemo goes through your system, and it's really close to your heart when they you know, put that inside of you, that poison to kill the cancer.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I was in bed one night and I was scared because my chest hurt so bad, and I thought it was my heart.
Yeah.
And so I was in deep prayer, and I said, "God, please help my organs function the way that you intend them to function, and please help me heal." And my eyes were closed. Like I said, I was in deep prayer, and all of a sudden I felt this cool breeze go through my nostrils, and I breathed in very deeply, and all of a sudden I opened my eyes, nothing was there, and my pain was gone. And I knew at that moment that I was in remission because I was in the hospital. You know, I've been receiving these chemo treatments. It was right towards the beginning.
This is after your first cancer?
This is my first cancer, because I was in the hospital for 3 weeks that first time.
Sure.
And I remember my doctor came into my room and the next morning, and I was like, I just know.
So were you at the hospital when this happened?
Yes, I was in the hospital.
That story kind of gives me goosebumps.
Mm-hmm. I call it my miracle room because I had many miracles in that certain room.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I had a special room at the hospital.
Tell us more.
Yeah, so my doctor came in and I just said, I know I'm in remission. And he goes, well, we have to do a bone marrow biopsy tomorrow. Because I had several bone marrow biopsies just to see how everything was going. And he said, and then we need to check the data, and then we can, you know, say whether or not you're in remission, but keep your hopes up. And I was like, yes. And you know, a few days later, we had the bone marrow biopsy. We found out the results. I was in remission. That meant that I can go to a different phase in the chemo treatments.
And you knew exactly the moment.
I knew it. The
moment. This is not some insidious, slow-moving miracle, slow-graded treatment, healing process. This was a moment.
Yes, I knew it was God. It was someone greater than me. And Yeah, it gives me goosebumps thinking about it. And
Yes.
and so that was one of the times, but also after the stem cell transplant, I thought I had been through a lot the first time going through chemo treatments and all
Yeah.
that. That was probably the hardest thing I ever had to endure. And
what was hard about it?
Tested my faith and my strength.
Okay.
So after the stem cell transplant, you have to be in isolation for 100 days.
Wow.
And so, that's a tough time. And,
Wow.
and you think about just being in isolation, but I was vomiting all the time.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't keep food down. In fact, I would take a bite and vomit.
Ugh.
I barely had enough strength to get out of my bed to go to the couch. And this was probably a couple months.
Wow.
And I'm not saying that everybody's story is that way, because
No.
this is just me. Everybody has their own, everybody's body is different, so you never know how your body's going to be
Sure.
affected. And I just remember sitting on the couch, and my daughter plays a piano, and I looked at the piano and the collage of photos, and in the center of it was a picture of Jesus that I got from a friend, and it said, "I never said it would be easy. I only said it would be worth it." And I
Wow.
looked at that every day, and I thought, and when in my deepest, darkest moments, I thought, I just have to make it through.
Say that again, the phrase in the picture. I just think that's worth repeating. I never thought it was.
Yeah, there was a picture of Jesus, and on it said, "I never said that it would be easy. I only said that it would be worth it."
Wow, that's profound. That's
It
profound.
is. It got me through every single day until I had the strength to move forward.
Well, any other anecdotes about finding the joy that helped push you along during your treatment and your healing?
Oh, yes. I looked for the joy every chance I got, especially when I was in the hospital. Being a leukemia patient, you're in the hospital for weeks at a time.
Yeah.
It's unlike some people that have the outpatient
right, yeah.
treatments. And so, the hospital can get kind of boring.
Oh, gosh.
So, yeah, of
Yeah.
course I was a joy hunter. I mean, who wouldn't be?
A joy hunter.
Oh, yes.
A joy hunter. I have not heard that before. I love it.
Yes, I would walk those halls and I'd be looking for any sort of entertainment.
Oh, I'm sure,
And
yeah.
of course, I talked to anybody
Oh,
that
of course.
came in my path.
You? No, you would never talk to strangers.
Yeah. So, I mean, one time I found a penny on the floor. Oh my gosh, a penny from heaven. There's a story right there.
Yeah.
I mean, that just gives you a little bit.
You are a joy hunter. I love it. That's interesting. I mean, when you're in isolation, can you see your family, or how does that work?
Okay, so I was really fortunate because I lived close enough to Nebraska Medicine that they let me be at home, I would say,
Wow.
3 weeks after I was in the hospital for the chemo treatments and the stem cell transplant. And the reason why they wanted me home is because they said that you heal more when you're with loved ones.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, that I was so grateful because we were within 45 minutes of Nebraska Medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Now, other people that are further away, there's a center that they can stay at that's
Okay.
close to the hospital, because you can get graft versus host,
Oh, okay.
which is a disease that your body's rejecting the stem cells
Oh, wow.
that you were given. And so if something like that happens, you have to hurry and get to the hospital because
Wow.
it can take over your life, and then it
Right.
can take your life.
Yeah,
And
wow.
so that 100 days of isolation when your body's changing, because my DNA is male DNA now because I had a male donor.
Interesting.
My blood type changed to his.
That is
And so, I mean, it's
crazy.
really mind-boggling
That
to
is
think about
something
this,
else,
right?
yeah.
So as your body's making all these changes in that 100 days of isolation, because you have to stay healthy too, like you can't have germs and all that. So I
Yeah.
was
Oh,
really
yeah.
worried because my kids were younger at the time.
Yeah, and you're at home.
I'm at home.
Well, that's a germ world with
Oh,
four
yes.
of them going out
There
in the
were
world
times
and
I would
coming
wear
back.
masks and gloves at
Yeah.
my own home.
Of course, yeah.
Just because maybe someone had a cold or whatnot.
Oh,
But
yeah.
yeah, it was a really tough time because I actually had 8 friends that I had made throughout this cancer journey who passed away.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, you kind of go through that. I don't want to say survivor guilt, but just I just was like, how come I'm here?
Yeah.
How did I make it? Why am I so lucky? And it's really hard.
Yeah, well, and survivor guilt's a real thing, and
Mm-hmm.
I guess you get through it, but you have a reason to be here.
Yes, I'm
And
going to help others
you're
with my story.
You're telling your story,
Yes.
and that not only about cancer, but you're inspiring others with your story in general.
Yeah.
And so that's why you're here. That's why you survived. Plus, obviously, you find the joy in your family, right?
I do.
And
I
so
do.
that's wonderful.
Yeah. And I want people to see the can in cancer. Just because
What
you
does that
get the
mean?
word cancer doesn't mean that it's a death sentence.
Okay.
I mean, we can make it through this.
Okay.
And it helps to have a village.
Oh, yeah.
Let people help you.
And that's really true because, things I've been through, people say, well, what can I do to help? And you don't always know what, as a person who hears that, you don't always know what to do or what to tell them to do. And so I found is just do random act of kindness for that person.
I totally
Isn't that
agree.
right?
Yes. And TakeThemAmeal.com was a huge help for my family. So my husband could be at the hospital with me, and my kids would have great meals when they got home,
Isn't that
loving
something?
meals.
You know, and that really makes a difference, just little things like that.
It does.
And don't ask permission, just do something nice. You know, you don't have to orchestrate it or organize it necessarily. Just go out there and
I think it's hard for people to, or for, people going through cancer to think of things for people to do because they don't want to ask for help.
Right.
So just do it, like you said, act of kindness.
Just do a random act of kindness.
Yeah.
And this book, Seed, Stem, and Bloom, is an act of kindness. It's a great story of Mary's journey and survival and inspiration to all of us as far as how we can take a great outlook on life. Mary, thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Paul, for having me.
Good to see you.
You too.